This is the secrets to build up like a pro to get into attacking opportunity. We're going to show you first on a tactical board so you understand the theory. Then we'll show you a gameplay example. You can see the full video on this on my Patreon series where I go through this in detail. The question people always ask me is, okay, when I make the first pass, what do I do if I'm up against a 4 versus 4? The thing is, I want to use your goalkeeper as an extra player, the extra man. If you're ever in trouble, use your goalkeeper. I think people feel like goalkeepers are used as like an outfield play in real life. You can do the same in FC. That way, if someone comes to press you, you alleviate pressure and you can always lob the ball around them. If they decide to stay, you got more time on the ball and more time to make a decision. So if you get pressed a lot from the goalkeeper, that is the best thing to do. Pass back to the goalkeeper, just like you would in real life. You have to be comfortable on the ball, and that's important, is to understand how to take a touch away and so on. I've already taught you that. And then when you get the ball, the best thing to do is to trigger a winger in behind, because then you have an outlet. Let's say you have, for example, a centre mid. You can literally go ahead and do a through ball. You see a lot of pro players doing this. I call this the 1-3-2, where they get the ball, they do a 1-2, and then they trigger the player, or they do a 1-2 with someone else, or they trigger that player early with the L1 button. They start making a run, and I call it the 1-3-2, where they find the pass. That is the basics. We're going to go over player lock as well. We're going to use a bit of that as well in the gameplay example. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to see how this is done. Okay, let's go. What I'd also recommend is also using potentially the co-op camera angle. I know some of you guys will still use, for example, telly or whatever. Co-op lets you see more of the pitch. Now, recording this, it's not in the elite division, because in the elite division I won't have that much time to speak about it, but the exact same principles apply when I use in the elite division or where the pros using the top tier division. It just allows me, for example, to put the controller down and not play and while I'm trying to explain things to you and show you the movements without my opponent holding the ball. So just ignore the attacking phase. So like here, when I have the ball, okay, let's say I've got the players and they're going to press me or apply pressure. If I really have nowhere to go, I'll use the goalkeeper. And you can see when a goalkeeper comes out, it frees up that centre back. So I'm just going to show you that one more time. So again, I'm under pressure. People, they lose the ball here and they panic. I'd rather you go back to the goalkeeper. If you're really not too sure, you can do some sort of precision lob pass. If you got like a tall striker like Haaland, sometimes you can win the ball peanut, but like that's your exit strategy. So if you can't go through, that is basically your exit strategy. And oh no, what do I do? That's what to do. So like we're gonna go here. So we're gonna try to catch this with the corner. I'm gonna header it back to the corner, a bit risky. So I'm just gonna header this. Don't do this, but I'm just gonna header this back to the goalkeeper. I'll try to. I'm gonna do it again now. Header it back to the goalkeeper. So like here. So I won't panic. There's counter attack on, I'll rush. Okay. So again, I'm waiting. If they come towards me, I baited that player going in. I'm comfortable with the ball. I'm not panicking. But now I've broken that first line. Then I can now make that through ball. Now, of course, in the elite division, you'll have less time. So you'll have more. You'll have to be quicker in your actions. Okay. Then I'll do some sort of 1-2 and I will do a through ball. From division 3 and below, I would say this through ball works almost all the time. It's all about timing. And then once you're in the final third, that's just a simple thing. So all you got to do here is just find, I call it like a puzzle, just moving the pieces, recycling the ball. As I've always told you, you got to recycle the ball. If you can't go forward, don't just try to push it and force it to go down the line. If you've got to recycle the ball, you got to recycle the ball. That means you got to rotate the ball around. Now, one thing you got to notice there, do you see I have only one center mid? This makes it more difficult to rotate the ball. That is why you see a lot of pro tactics they use, for example, playmaker or box to box. The problem is with this is it makes it much more difficult for you to actually go and rotate the ball. So I'm going to give you a quick example here. So my opponent just quickly celebrates like he's won the World Cup. I'm going to show you what I mean. So we're using here a 4-1-4-1. Now you see I have box crasher on my CDM. And you see what that meant was my CDM was going forward. So do you see when I tried to rotate the ball, I only had Gaora backwards. So this is why I say when I go in my tactics video, I always say to you, don't just copy a code. Only the clueless people who literally have no idea just copy codes. And they think by changing the code every single time, it's going to work for them. You have to understand, as I explained to you, and that's why I spent a long time explaining. Trust me, it's easy for me just to give you the code rather than explain to you how to do it. So if I use, for example, 2 deep line playmaker defense, okay, as an example, you're going to see now, have a look. When I'm attacking, those 2 CDMs are going to be outside the box. So we're going to try to replicate the same situation. So let's say, for example, we did a 1-2. And if you can't go forward, you'll have to rotate the ball like here. People think, oh, can I go forward on first instance? If you can't go forward, you have to go around. Okay, this is very, very important. But I just want to replicate, for example, the same situation again. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just get the ball back quickly here. And I'll just do this just a bit manually, just to save time here. But like, let's say, for example, like here, player lock, very effective. But you see now, when I rotate the ball, now I have the other center mid, and then I can make a pass to that center mid, and then I can make that pass into the middle. You know, people say like, oh, how does that tiki-taka, like the pros are doing it? When they have two playmakers or two center mids going forward, it can be very difficult for the average player. I think even players in Elite, they struggle with that. So make sure you go ahead and make that change. That way you have those two center mids outside the box. Let me just defend this. You can see how effective AI defending is. I'm talking, I'm not even actually playing. My hands are down and I can still defend pretty easily by holding the ball for a second or so. But that's the point I was trying to make. So when you are trying to rotate the ball and you're trying to get the ball in that final third, if you need those two center mids, they're there. Now, what I was mentioning to you, that 1-2. Now, if that player makes that run in behind and you can't pass that player, you've got to be comfortable left down long stick dribbling. So you could be like, okay, you know what? I can't pass the ball there, but I'm now going to go to the other side. And what I like to do is I press the L1 button. Now, the L1 button pushes the player going forward. If you lose the ball, then you've got no right back. So you see a lot of the pros do that. And that's why I say I wouldn't recommend this until you're an elite level. Although it helps your attacking stance, the problem is if you trigger a play and you lose the ball, you're basically going to concede almost 9 times out of 10 because counterattacks are so strong. And you can see it's also do with timing of the pass. You can't just throw any through ball. You have to make sure when that player is overlapping, you're timing it to perfection. And you can see, for example, like here, you then have to defend the situation, have to bring someone in like so. And thankfully, it wasn't a good play. Otherwise, it would have been a player lock or something on a higher division. So this is what I meant by the 1-3-2. So I do like a through ball here. And I'm just waiting for that player to make that run. And it's all about timing. And then I bring that player going through. And whether you want to go back inside the box or whatever you do is up to you. But you see how I made that through ball. And then it's all about timing. I waited for that player to go on the outside just before they were offside. Then I went and I ended up getting the ball. So it's important that your timing is so important. But the L1 trigger is going to be the heart of your play. Even, for example, like here, I use the L1 trigger to push Salma into that position. But I make sure, like, see, I'm pressing L1 again to push Salma into that position up north. Do you see what I mean? If I'm doing a 1-2, I'm making Salma make the run. If she doesn't make that run, the thing is, the player will stand still. And think about it, if the player stands still, it doesn't help you. To create space, you want the player to be going away from you. And when they go away from you, it gives you an option to pass the ball to, and it helps you by relieving pressure. The problem is, if someone comes towards you, this is not relieving the pressure. You see, it's soaking me in. We have to go back 15 seconds. But on the top tier, that's why I say short passing. We'll go over it tomorrow. But short passing on the top tier scene if you know what you're doing. But you saw there, when someone comes towards me, it's making the pitch closer and more tighter together. Real life football examples here. This is not new stuff or FC20. It's just basic football principles you'll learn when you're probably 10 years old. But the point I was trying to make is, you make the pitch very compact. It doesn't give you a passing option. Of course, the top tier player will know how to use left stick dribbling, or they'll use some sort of thing to get away from it. But effectively, what you want to do is when you get the ball, let's say if you find that player, I don't have to I do a 1-2. And again, look here. Now, look, now that AI is running backwards. You see that? It says giving me space, and I have chance to make that through ball if I want to. So that is the most important thing. And then when you're from here, you can do whatever you want. You can go ahead and do a finesse shot. You can go ahead and do a skill move. You can go to the tiki-taka, the first time pass. You can do whatever you want to do in those situations. But it's kind of like Guardiola. Like, you know, think of it like get to the final third. Then in the final third, you can do a bit of freeform. You have to adapt depending on what your opponent is. Have they got 2 CDMs? Is your striker free? Do you have 1 striker? Do you have 2 strikers? And these are all the things that you have to take into account and bear in mind when you are building up. Now, when you're doing a player lock, it's basically the same thing. AI, you can argue, is really bad in some areas. The benefit of the player lock is you got to make sure it's on in settings. I've got a video on this, but it allows you to maneuver the player you want. So let's say we're the team in white for a second. If your player is making a run behind, you can manually go ahead and move them into a better position. I don't really like using player lock, but because the AI is so bad, sometimes I have no choice. Of course, I don't really like to use that way. I like to play basic gameplay, but I think in the last year or so, I feel like sometimes I'm forced to do it just given the fact that how bad the game is. So I'm going to show you just one more quick example here that I forgot to actually show you. So, you know, a player lock, for example, like when I'm here, and let's say I do a 1-2 and I do an L1 trigger there, I can, for example, and you got to be quick, okay? So you can see even this in a lower division as well, right? But you can see, look, it's like here, L3, R3, and I can make the player run into where I want them to go. You see a lot of this on a pro scene. You can even use it in the final third. You can do a bit of faking and get the ball into the right place. You can go like a bit like this and then get the ball and do some kind of fakes and pretends. That is more on the elaborate level. Don't do that yet, especially if you're new to player lock. You know, you could, for example, you might see it on a pro scene, you know, get head of the ball, player will lock it backwards. But I would say just keep that simple for now. You know, there's no need to do it. So like when I get the ball, for example, like here, and remember, I'm not using play lock. People think, oh, you got to use play lock all the time. You don't have to. You got to be careful about overusing play lock and not like here. Like see, play lock would be useful to get Pina there. I can bring the ball, but there's no need to use a player lock there. No need to use a player lock there because then I can just make a normal pass, bit offside. But you understand, I don't need to use a player lock there. But I like to use it in 1v1s or wing situations. Now, the best way to actually practice the player lock would be in squad battles. And this one I'm going to show you in this game mode because it'll give you so much time to tell you. So you press L3 and R3, you get that kite above your head. You select a player and then you can request an action to them. So for example, you can make a player move down the wing and then request a through ball, for example. And I would say squad battles is the best way to practice this. Even if you are playing squad battles against Ultimate, it's actually a very good way. Look, I personally do not play squad battles, but it's actually a very good way to practice. So if you're in that situation where you have that striker, get used to that movement, keeping that player on side, and then timing that through ball. It's a really good way of practicing how to use it, and then you go inside the game. But you need to be quicker because in a real life, how I'm explaining to you now is in squad battles. But you don't have time to L3, R3 slowly. You have to be quick. So what I mean by that is, let's say for example, I have the ball. Let's get the ball off AI first. Thank you very much for that terrible shot. But let's say for example you have the ball. You can't be like, okay, I got to do L3, R3. I got to then select a player. I got to make the move. You won't have time. You have to be literally, okay, I got the ball, bam. I'm going to decide what I'm going to do, bam, like that. L3, R3, going to run into the middle. You got to be quick. You can't be slow in everything, especially this FC. You got to be quick. You can't be slow in your actions. Anyways, I hope that gave you a better understanding of how I prevent the pressure early on and how I build up. At the end of the day, you kind of have to be a bit dynamic in terms of how you go forward. And of course, it'll depend on what formation you play. But the key thing is making those wingers make runs in behind. If you can't go forward, you got to rotate the ball on the other side. In fact, on the Patreon series, we've got a full in-depth video explaining, for example, how we move the ball from the goalkeeper to the final third, how to get the ball to the strikers to make those clinical chances. You can see that full tutorials and the full tactical board theories on how that works, the other mechanics, not just the L1 triggers and the timing. Patreon.com/NoGuide, links down below in the description. Don't forget, if you don't get bet after 1 month, we will refund your money. The most comprehensive SC26 guide and FC tutorials out there. Patreon.com/NoGuides. If you don't get bet after 1 month, we will refund your money. That's no guys guarantee. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. I'll catch you next time. Peace.